call the meeting to order. If you'd stand for the pledge of the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you remain standing, Dennis is going to open us with prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to stand before you and do the town's business. We ask that you give our country leaders wisdom and guidance through these tough times. Be with those that protect our freedoms near and abroad. In your heavenly name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. We have a motion to approve the minutes from June 4th.
Motion to approve the minutes from June 4th.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5 affirmative. We have a motion to approve and ratify the fund report and docket.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by John Purdy, second by Chad. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5 affirmative. Okay, before we go to the public hearing, Lee, did you want to?
Yeah, is there anyone here this evening because you received a notice about a petition to vacate an easement on property on US 31? There's a property owner who has a water line easement down through the property that is not being used, and they are wanting to ask the town to vacate it so it doesn't encumber their property. And the attorney who's representing them sent notices out that the matter was going to be considered tonight, but there was a miscommunication about it being considered tonight, and so it's not on our agenda, and the council doesn't have it before them. But I wanted to be sure if anybody came here for that reason, I wanted to let you know so you didn't sit through the whole meeting. Nobody, right? Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to open the public hearing on the rate study for the sewer availability fees.
So, as you guys know, we had done this back in, I think, end of last year, done a rate study for the sanitary sewer system. Tonight, the only thing that really asking for is the approval to increase the availability fee, which, if you remember right, that is basically the charge that we charge new connections. So anybody that isn't connected or that is connected currently wouldn't be affected by this. It's just new connections. So, and I think, so let me get to that page. How much it is.
It's going from $1,100 to $2,430 per connection. And you might recall, it was a part of a race. It was studied. There was included in the report from LWG.
Yes.
Robert Reynolds. Yeah. He has recommended to the council that it be increased to that amount in order to recoup these historical costs of the plant. And that's what it's about. It's about new customers paying an amount that causes them to contribute to the historical cost of having the plant and the collection system in place. And so we introduced the ordinance back in June, set it for public hearing tonight, and we need to give the public an opportunity to speak on this if anyone's here on this matter, and then close the public hearing, and then you can take action if you're so inclined.
Okay. Since this is a public hearing, if there's anybody here who has questions, comments, or anything about this particular, rate increase on sewer availability fees, now is your time. We just ask you to give us your name and address. Yes.
D. Appleton, 103 Sawmill. Just, will the developer be paying, because I didn't know about that, so will the developer over there, west of town, will he be paying that upcharge to have all those homes connected?
Yes. Yes.
So he will be paying.
Yes.
So that's part of what they had said with you guys.
Yes.
Essentially, the homeowners will pay.
Okay.
It'll be part of the cost of the house. Lee, for clarification, looking at the updated plan on page 15, I think it says 2290. Am I looking at that wrong?
Well, I don't know.
It's page 15, it's where Angela sent it out, it says amended, well, maybe it's not the current, it says amended 428, is that the most recent study?
Amended
Yeah,
420.
amended 428.
Okay.
Did he change it?
Well, unless
The only
I,
thing that was changed was he added that third, scenario, but that wasn't for this, so if on that, if you look at page,
I just have that in front of me. Here it is.
page 13 versus calculation of the availability fee, it shows divided by total EDUs is, that shows the 2,419.
I must not have the most current report then, because mine shows on page, yeah, my computer's.
This is on page 13.
Mine's on page 15, it shows 2290.
15?
It's on page 13.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, it's number at the bottom of the page is 13, I'm sorry.
It is 2290.
I think
And
you
what's
said,
you said amended on April 28th of 25?
yeah, that's what the document's titled. It's what Angela just sent out.
That was on your email that says that was the most updated.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at, and 2419 is
Well,
What's the date on the report that you have?
April
No.
28th.
On
Okay.
the first page, April
Yeah,
20th?
on the first page.
Are you looking at the equity slash EDU line? Are
right.
you looking at the divided by total EDUs?
Equity divided by EDU, is that the wrong
Yes.
So
place?
it's should be the, according to what Matt's saying, is divided by the total EDUs.
Right, Lee, isn't that what it is?
Well, I think that's how they arrive at the number.
Okay.
But somebody help me find where you're looking.
You got something I do, right?
Yeah.
Which is what came out today.
I don't know that I was aware there was an updated one.
Well, you know that, oh, well, this says November 11th, amended April 28th. Is that what you're looking at as well?
Calculation of availability fee. So there's utility plant and service. Calculation of availability equity method is 2240. Is that what?
And then this bottom one here says 2290.
Those are the appendix. Let's see if he's offered conclusions that.
Yeah, I think what I did is I misspoke on the 2419. It is the 2290. The 2419 is the number of EDUs that we have.
Right.
Then you divide that, so I'm sorry.
Okay, so it is the
So
2290.
you think it's 2290?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then it would be, I guess, if you're inclined, we could certainly adopt the ordinance with that change to reduce the availability fee from the 2430 to the 2290.
Because in the,
We advertised the 2430, so if anything you adopted is equal to or less than the 2430, meets the notice requirement. What caused it to change, Matt?
I'm not sure. Because the only thing in the amended one, remember how we added a scenario 3 for the project, for the potential project, I guess? So he added a scenario 3 in there, which was what you and I had talked to him about, cutting the capital improvements out of the budget and using it that way. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Conversation? So he put a third scenario with that in there. That's the only thing, to my knowledge, that was changed. I don't know why it would have changed that.
Calculated as total plant equity divided by total EDUs. I mean, I think that is the formula for what the availability fee would be.
I think that was our intention, is why we're basing it on the EDUs.
Yeah, and we did talk with him, didn't we, about, that did result in the total capital cost being somewhat less.
Yeah, so I guess that would kind of affect.
I guess, that makes sense to me, that would cause it to go down. What, by $190, right? Well, I think that must be right, yeah. Good catch, John. I think that I had drafted this ordinance back maybe even last year or something, right after he had done this, and we've just been carrying it forward.
Right.
Waiting, I think what we contemplated was we would have one ordinance that would have the recurring rates and non-recurring rates all bundled together and approved at the same time. And because we're doing this project now, we need to wait until we know more about the project before we can finalize our recurring rates. So we decided to split them and do this separate from the recurring rates. But I've just carried that number through all the way, and that's why it's the 2430.
I just found the original study. I'll take a quick look at it. Not that it matters, I don't suppose. Well, the original study came to 2430.
Yes.
Yeah, I can show you the map if you care to see it, see what changed, but
Well, it would be on that same page. I think I don't think the EDUs changed. I think it would have been the total, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We rely on the rate consultant to tell us what it needs to be and to support it. And I guess what we have is an amended, more current rate study that tells us it should be slightly less than what his original report had called for.
yeah.
Okay, so the 2290.
2290. So what we would, again, if you're inclined, you could adopt ordinance 2025-07 with substituting 2290 for the 2430, and then implement that sewer availability fee this evening.
Okay. Anyone else in the public have questions or comments at all? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing. And you said that was
2025-07.
okay. Well, that is on here for later, but if somebody would like to make a motion
I'll make the motion.
to approve the 2290.
Yes, so we see there in section 1, it would be increased to 2290 instead of 2430.
Okay,
I will second that.
second by Dennis. Questions, comments from the council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 affirmative.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, we're gonna move into old business. First thing on here is golf cart usage. And what I'm going to ask is the council would allow me to put together a small committee. I know we discussed this about 2 years ago and it didn't go anywhere, but there are more and more people in our area, surrounding areas, that either have golf carts, want to use golf carts. I had a golf cart, would love to have another one. So I would like to put together a small group of people to just look over some different scenarios of it, and at the August meeting, bring it back to council with a presentation, if that's okay.
Yeah, I have one question on background, and I suppose it's for Joe. Forget personal preference, purely from safety, how do you feel about golf carts in town?
I think if it's monitored and there's some stipulations put on it, it would be okay.
Okay.
But the stipulations, we'd have to have, I think the most important thing for safety is that a lot of the kids would be on them. We've got to be careful and put a certain age on there. And I really think that the age would be 15 or older.
Or maybe a driver's.
Actually, I believe state statute is 18,
Okay.
because Dwayne sent me,
But they have to have an ID card, and it has to have turn signals, brake lights,
yes,
and headlights.
I think they have to be registered in some way.
they can be registered, we can also put that on there. If they go to the license branch, they can register them by serial number, just like you would a moped.
There's also a distinction between off-road vehicles and golf carts.
Yes.
And there are some that are considered off-road vehicles by definition under Title IX that do have to be registered, right?
Yeah, that would be a side-by-side or.
But straight up golf carts
Right.
under Title IX of the Indiana Code state don't have to be. But I think we could require locally that they do be,
It's under the CCs.
So, and
I think.
Joe, to your point, it would be, and to you as well, in looking at what Bargersville, Franklin, and now Speedway is the latest one that I've seen, some of those are fairly restrictive. The one that Speedway just passed, it's 18 and over, and it has to be a licensed driver. Seat belts, all the things that a car would have to have. So at this point, if there's no objection, I would like for myself and Dwayne and Joe to start researching it, and if there's anybody else that would like to get involved, only because you do the streets. Are we okay with that? And then we'll bring something back in August, and it may not be, I don't know if there's anybody here tonight that wanted to talk about the golf carts. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let you, could you give Angela your name and address, please?
Karen Frankenberger, 1082 Berwin Road. I think everything you're saying about having the restrictions on it, you gotta be 18 or whatever, you gotta have seatbelts. My problem is I have enough kids on bicycles, electric scooters, mini bikes, go-karts, all over my neighborhood. That's just one more thing I have to watch out for. And who's gonna enforce this? Is this gonna be something we pass and then everybody turns a blind eye? What about insurance? If I happen to be backing out of my driveway and I hit a golf cart or the golf cart hits me, who's gonna be liable? I mean, I don't wanna use my insurance if it's not my fault.
Right.
And we have these kids, they're not even in seats, they're on the back of these things like a trampoline, and they're bouncing all over. And I really think we need to give it a whole lot of thought. Some of these golf carts can go 40 miles an hour. And I just think it's a really dangerous situation when you have them in the neighborhoods.
And I'm not gonna disagree with you, okay, because there are a lot of stipulations that I foresee, okay? And Joe, not to throw anything in your lap again, but that's going to be like everything else. And I know you guys do a good job of the mini bikes, and there's a kid on a four-wheeler that runs up and down my street every once in a while. You can't be everywhere all the time, but in instances like yours, if you have an overabundance, let them know, because I know there's been occasions where somebody has called and said, hey, this is getting way out of hand, and they'll schedule extra patrol. Or they'll have somebody sit there, because that is a problem.
And I work at the Sweet Scoots Market. They're on the corner of Tracy and Ashland, or whatever the other, that Tracy and Ashland. And that's a dangerous intersection. It's a dangerous parking lot. There's never, people come flying through there in cars, but then you add golf carts, and there's some that come up there. And they're not even parking in a parking space. They're pulling up to the back door, they're blocking things, and I just think that it's something that should be really, if we're not gonna be able to enforce what we put on it, then maybe we ought to just do away with it altogether.
Okay. And I agree with you, because one of my concerns has been, if we pass this, we as a board say, yes, we're going to allow these, and your scenario happens, you're backing out of your driveway and someone runs into you. Is it your fault? Is it the golf cart driver's fault? Or is it our fault because we allowed it? So those are definitely some things we're going to have to look into. Like I say, the Speedway one was the most restricted that I've seen, because they are required to carry insurance. There's just a lot of things that go along with it. They can't just say, I'm going to get a golf cart and my 13-year-old is going to ride it around. Not going to happen. So.
And I've even seen them on sidewalks. I mean, it's really, the kids, oh, don't get out in the road, and the kid drives it down the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's a really dangerous situation that we're wading into, and it needs a lot of thought.
Okay, thank you for your input. Is there anyone else while we're here that would like to talk about it? If not, we'll get a group together and, okay? But we will talk about it again in August, so if you want to come back, please feel free.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The other thing that I wanted to discuss is our off-duty employment for our police department. And as you'll notice, we have a whole back row of police officers here tonight. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. No. Our police officers are allowed to go and work off-duty employment, but we have restricted it to just Johnson County. One of the things that I've come to find out is we are the only department in Johnson County that restricts it to the county. Every other department lets them work the donut counties, but again, everybody has, I passed out something that our police officer, actually Chelsea Finley, worked on this in conjunction, I think, with Justin Holderfield. And all the officers looked through this and they signed their names to it that they liked what they came up with. And we just got this today, so you're looking at it at the same time I am. Our officers being restricted to just Johnson County are being left out of a lot of opportunities. There are construction sites, there's churches, there's all kinds of places that are begging for security people. I guess the best way that it was described to me by Chelsea was if they're at a construction site and they see something going on, and maybe they're up in Indianapolis, they're not going to necessarily be the ones that's going to go apprehend. They're going to call IMPD or Marion County, whichever jurisdiction it is. They're going to be the expert witness. So they're asking that we allow them to go outside. I know when we talked about this before, one of our biggest concerns was communication, that we might have one of our officers up there, and if they do run into a situation, there's nowhere, they're out of contact with anybody. And if one of you guys can address that, the way Chelsea explained it, that is no longer an issue, but I'm not exactly sure. So if one of you guys that's more versed on it wants to kind of explain to the council. John?
I'll take that. So Mecca is who handles the radio and IPD in the IFD, Marion County Sheriff's Office, IMPD, the other satellite like Lawrence, Cumberland, Speedway. They can actually program our radios with a bank to have the districts, the IMPD districts on there. So if you're working somewhere on the southeast side, you can change your radio over to that channel and you would be in contact with the controller dispatch. It's an easy process. When I worked at Cumberland Falls, both in Marion County and Hancock County, so we had both counties on each channel. It's just a matter of programming the radio, which they have the technology up there to do that. I think that's like the $6 million man, but that's their specialty. So.
And my understanding is if we do that, there would be no cost to the town for the reprogramming. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
How does the insurance work, both for the benefit of the officer, if you're injured in that duty, or liability for the town? How does that get handled?
So previous security companies that I've worked for doing ODD, when I worked at Cumberland, they have their own liability insurance. And part of our general order up there was that you had to turn in with your work permit, is what it's called, the declaration page, to where the department can see that the company you're essentially working for has liability insurance.
That would cover you on that duty. Okay.
John, we have an indemnity form that we fill out that we have, before they even work for a certain employer or a person who has a security LLC for a place, they'll fill that out and sign it, and it's got a box to check on there that they will take care of anything that would happen in a case like that. So that
Meaning-
form is filled out.
Meaning the officer signs that and indemnifies the town?
The employer of
The employer.
security company
Okay.
signs it, and of course, the officer will sign it too.
I have a question about the budget impact, since, you know, they're using the cars and that sort of thing. What's the degree of that impact on the local taxpayers?
That I wouldn't know until we open the doors on that. It's a little bit further. It depends on the hours that the officer works. Give you an example, let's say they go to Lucas Oil Stadium and they work an event there. Well, the car obviously is going to be parked. However, if they're working on controlling traffic as a deterrent for speeders, they'll be in their car and the vehicle will be running, so it's going to consume more gas, obviously. So that's something that would depend on the hours. If they work 4 hour increments, 8 hours, 12 hours. And how many times they do it a month.
Yeah, I was more concerned with just a travel distance, because I saw in here a couple of suggestions on mileage. You know, how many additional miles, that sort of thing, and the ability to take their vehicle to those. Any ballpark on that? I know that it would fluctuate by the cost of petrol.
Well, that's one, but it would depend on where the work site is that they would be going to for another reason. However, we could monitor that, because right now the equation that we've got set up is for they have to replace a gallon of gas for every 12 miles on the car. Or 15, I forget, 12.
That's the off-duty rate?
Yes,
Okay.
that they replace the fuel for that.
Most additionally, in the proposal, we're also not asking to go over the 300 miles we're already allotted. So we're not asking to have that expanded to like 500 miles. The 300 miles is already established. And
Okay.
it would be the officer would have to use their mileage wisely.
And just so I understand, right now, every officer is limited in their new Whiteland duties to 300 miles per month?
to use your car in an off-duty.
Off-duty.
In an off-duty mile, okay. And so, if I understand, then you would track those off-duty miles, every 12 miles, you'd reimburse the town a gallon of gas?
We have all officers, we have a mileage form that we turn in each month to the assistant chief. He tallies that. The first 100 miles are free, and then mile 101 to the 300 is where that would kick in, and then we would reimburse the town.
So every 12 miles is a gallon of gas?
Yes.
Which clearly covers fuel, may not cover wear and tear plus, but
What do you mean by the first 100 miles are free?
That the first 100 miles we drive off duty that's not figured into
Okay.
gas.
It's personal miles.
We don't have to reimburse it.
it's an employee benefit, basically.
Yeah, I'm good. I just wanted, that's what I thought it was, but I didn't want to just assume.
It's just a simplistic term to put in.
So, what if a scenario, you work nights for New Whiteland, then you go be security somewhere, work all day, and then work that next night? Is there going to be a...
We do have a general order. There has to be an 8-hour window.
Okay.
So they can't just leave here and go directly there. There has to be 8 hours, even before they come back on duty. So it goes both ways. So that way somebody's not working 24 hours straight.
Yes.
So, because that's not good for the officer. That's just a safety issue.
For both places, yes.
Correct. But see, Chad, with them working the way they have in Johnson County doing that, that's the way we got it set up, and we wouldn't deviate from that. We'd still use that same formula to make sure that they were fit for duty.
Yeah.
Do the other departments in Johnson County who are allowing a broader scope to ODE, do they have similar standard operating protocols?
From my knowledge, yes.
Yeah, well, not all of them, but yes.
Okay.
Well, and one of the curiosities I have, this says no working at bars, which I think would be,
Okay, that's in our general order, there's no, they won't work around alcohol. Now, in the event, like, let's bring up Lucas, all right, the state of Maine.
right.
If
They
they
serve
work somewhere like that, I mean, it's a big crowd that serve alcohol.
Oh, yeah, they serve
But
it.
no bars.
That's different, yeah.
That's restricted, we don't do that.
Are there any other restrictions, or are there restrictions that other municipalities have on that kind of activity?
No, we're pretty well in check with other municipalities.
And that's consistent with when I worked at Cumberland, in their general order, if you worked off duty, you could not work anywhere where their primary mode of making money was from alcohol sales.
Right.
I mean, honestly, this is not gonna deviate from what they're doing now and what we have already approved, other than they can go to the donut counties. That's all. And I think that's what you're asking, is that we restrict it to the donut counties. We don't want somebody going up to Fort Wayne. You know, it's just gonna kind of be like everyone else, and we just stay within our area.
And obviously, quite a bit of our force showed up tonight. You guys feel pretty strongly about this, it seems like.
It helps supplement some income costs, and families that are larger than others, you know, they might have more children or more medical expenses.
Sure.
It just helps offset that cost.
But I know this has been something that we did restrict, so if we're going to allow it, I believe I'm not sure how it was listed, but we would have to have a motion, I believe, Lee, to change what the policy is.
Yep.
And the only thing I have is I Googled donut counties real quick, and it calls out the 8 counties surrounding Marion, but we are including Marion County, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I think from that, we mean the donut counties of Johnson County.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense then.
You're having a day.
Yes.
And you can't say donut.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised you guys used donut, but you went first.
That's right, they're power rings, they're not
Power rings.
donuts. So, it's a policy change, so if somebody would like to make a motion that we allow this, I would like to stipulate, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but anybody that is going to do this has to let you know. It's documented that it's not just, I'm gonna go work tomorrow. You know where they're going, and
It has to be done in advance like that, and the protocol is they have to fill out the indemnity form.
Right, and that's key as far as I'm concerned. Number one, to protect you guys, because you might get hurt, but also to protect the town, because that carries some liability when you show up in a new Whiteland car.
Yeah, we don't allow them to work it until that form's filled out.
Yeah, okay.
And I have them filed in their file.
any other questions from council?
Nope.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to accept the proposal as presented by the police department.
I'll second.
Second, other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 affirmative.
So Lee, what are the next steps as far as the change in policy, the actual codification of our changes?
Yeah, well, I think the only change is your department policy. Our personnel manual doesn't restrict, it's not in there, is it, Joe? I don't think it's in there. I was looking at it while y'all were talking. I think it may be part of your SOPs.
Yeah, our SOP general order.
So change it.
I know that right now.
I think that you all have approved it, and I think, Joe, and I think I don't know that it's required. My suggestion to you is submit it to the council for them to see it after that change has been made. I don't think it calls for a change to our personnel manual, because the personnel manual addresses third-party employment for civil employees and then points to the police department's own policies as they relate to third-party employment.
That's what I wanted to know.
So I think that's how it works.
So, that I'm clear in understanding, we are now able to drive to any donut county. Okay.
What is the deal with the police and the donuts, Joe? I mean, you're walking into this on your own. I feel like I need to get a hold of you.
That was just a term, We don't power rings.
How about surrounding counties?
I like donuts, but I won't eat them in uniform.
Yeah.
It's good policy.
Well, thank you, council.
Well, thank you for what you guys do. We tremendously appreciate, and you know, I know some of you guys are here on your own time tonight, probably worked all day, and we definitely appreciate everything you guys do. And if you want to stay and be bored to tears, you're welcome. If not, have a good night and be safe. Okay, SRF funding dewatering project. Joe.
Okay, so just to give you an update, we had the public hearing for the preliminary engineering report back on May 7th here. The PER, the preliminary engineering report, was submitted to IDEM back in April, and along with a funding application. And if you recall, we were saying that the hope was that you get on the project priority list. And so the SRF did come out with their draft project priority list last week, and I've given that a copy. I don't know if you guys have it or not yet, but there were 116 projects on there. 85 of them were scored. You're 84. They only funded the top 9 projects get what they call the below market rate loans, and in some cases they get forgivable loans because of the high user rates and so forth. If you recall, we went into this thinking you had the best option would be you fall into that top category. You might be able to get a 3% interest rate. Now you do qualify for their pooling fund, is what, and those interest rates are in the 4% range. When the rate consultant did your rate study, he used 5% to calculate the rate impacts, just to be conservative. So, and one of the things in scoring, quite frankly, is median household income. You guys have a high one, so your score is lower. And user rates. If your user rates are at $36 are relatively low when you look at some of those others on the list. And when you look at where they would go, they're not going to go that high compared to some of these other communities and districts that are looking at some of these projects. So it's where we thought it would end up. I did have a conversation with the Indiana Finance Authority SRF section chief, and she kind of confirmed everything. And you are eligible for the third quarter would be the best. That's the March closing. One of the things she said, they kind of changed. They used to email all the applicants and ask them to email back if they're interested in going for that. Now they want you to send an email. Now, I could do it, or Matt could do it, to say, yes, we're interested in applying for third quarter funds. There's no, if for some reason you change your mind, you could do that too. But the big thing is, if you go for the third quarter funds, you have to close on that loan in March of next year, which means you have to start the design, get the project so that we have to bid the project essentially, and get a bid, and then we would go to the closing, and your rate consultant would finalize the rates and so forth, and you'd be ready to go to construction after that. So you're at a point now where I've sent an agreement to you for us to do the 2 design phases and the geotech work, if you're so inclined. I mean, because the timing is, if we're gonna make those dates, we would have to get going on that. We'd have to start going on that. So, I guess that's where we're at this point. Is that the PER? There are still some review comments to come back. I mean, I called the reviewer and left her a message. I don't anticipate anything major in that kind of thing. We will respond to it and get that final approval for you. But just like I talked about, in order to be eligible for those funds and so forth, you've got to be ready. You can apply for it, but if you're not ready and can't close, well then it doesn't really do you any good. So we're at that point. So I got the agreement. I think Matt's talked to you about that. So I guess it's up to you guys if you'd like to move forward with that, or if you have questions, we'd be glad to try to answer them.
Couple questions. Is the interest rate, regardless of what it fluctuates in the market, we're stuck with, or we're locked in at that 4
Well,
Ish.
well, it'll be what it closes at, like it's in the, like those market, the pooling funds go with the market. They're
Okay.
not subsidized rates, and the subsidized rates are a point or two below that. So,
Okay.
and talking with them, they're guessing too, as long as they're gonna be in the difference by the time we get to that third quarter.
Okay, and then, the other question I have, time, schedule-wise, how comfortable are you with closing?
Well, I think we're right there. We gotta get moving. It's in our schedule. I think the schedule is fine. We've gotta get it, we anticipate getting it designed, starting, if you give us the go-ahead, July, August, September.
Complete, 90% complete in October.
Yeah, and then getting that in for permit. We gotta get a permit for it. They usually take about 60 days from IDEM. So that would be in January, and we would advertise for bids and receive bids
Okay.
mid-February, and then you gotta line up the rate consultant will do the final numbers with the actual bids. You got bond counsel you gotta use to close on the loan and so forth. And that all comes together in that 30 days or so after the bid.
Yeah, after you started throwing dates out, I read that this morning,
Yeah.
on the schedule.
Remind me what we expect the total cost of this to be.
It's 3.5.
3.3 something, yeah.
One of the things we're gonna look at in the first thing, one of the first steps would be is to set up a couple of site visits. There's a couple of facilities with centrifuges, and there's a couple with, the rotary press.
Yeah, the screw press.
Screw press, and look at those and see if there's any preference on the operator's part. And the centrifuges have the smallest footprint, they have the highest concentration of dry solids and so forth. And the rotary press is right behind it, but that would be something we do initially, and then we get the buildings laid out and put the facility in there. And we'll lay those buildings out initially, and then get the geotech to put some borings down there and make sure there's no problem with the soils and the foundations and so forth. So, we got like a 30% report, I think, in there, and we're gonna give a summary, and we can come back here and tell you what we're thinking about it, what we're gonna do, so.
Just one question for you. I just thought of what you said about the geotech and the boring. Is there, can you use old ones?
Yes.
Because I'm sure we would have done one back in 18 or 19 when we did our last project.
Yeah.
Is that something you think new enough that we could do that?
Yes, if they're deep enough and they're in the general area, I think we could do that, yes.
Okay. I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
no, we talked a little bit about that. If you got them, you can use it. So,
It's a project that has to be done, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes, I get that you want to get the best interest rate you can and you want to be good stewards of the town's money and all that stuff, but I think what we know from state revolving fund is they're the best funding source available. They just are. And when we look at rural development as an option, you guys can say what you want, but my experience of late is they're not even an option. It is so, you talk about user friendly, they just aren't. I wouldn't have any confidence that you could actually get it to a closing in a meaningful time period. And so, you know, if the project is one that has to be done, I don't think you can put yourself on a track toward getting it done that is more favorable financially than state revolving fund. And I don't think New Whiteland, given the current demographics of the town and the need for this project, I don't think we're ever going to get up out of the pool program on this one. Do you? I mean, do you think there's ever out of the pool program?
No,
I mean, if you skip this round and decide we're going to try it next time in hopes that we're going to make it above the line, I don't think New Whiteland for this project's ever going to get above the line. Were you comfortable predicting that it never would?
Oh,
Right?
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Well, I'm just looking.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly right, because of the factors, those forgivable loans and sub-market rates are for communities that meet the disadvantaged community. You don't meet that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar with the Oprah funding.
Damn the bad luck, huh? Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if you look at that list, there's 75 other communities that are below that, and some of them wait, and some of them do get in there the next time because of those factors. And like you mentioned with rural development, you wouldn't qualify for any of their loans, and you'd be lucky to get the long-term loan, and they're nice.
And then your other option is going out on the market and selling bonds, and you're not going to pay those back at a lower rate of interest than what SRF's going to.
Right, and you've gone through this far with the PER and everything, so I think you're ready to go if you wanna go. And you're right about the building, we've talked about the buildings before, so those really should be addressed. So,
And just so you know, as far as, so I think for the design, what basically we're asking for is for tasks 1, 2, and then possibly the geotechnical, we'll look at what we had done in 18 or 19, see if that's viable. But for those 3 tasks, I think it comes up to, I think, 155,000. And like, I had it wrote down somewhere, but was it Fund 6204? Is that?
6204, yeah.
Okay. Would be where we pull from, so that is our, capital, outlay, where we basically kind of the savings that we save back every year, based off of this equipment, things like that, so that's where this money would be coming from. I don't think Joe had mentioned it, but it can be reimbursed if we would like it back to it from.
It's on the list, the software, it's on the non-construction cost, so they will be reimbursed. I mean, that's, it's on there, it's all on there. So is your bond counsel, your rate consultant, your estimates in there for all that?
All part of that 3.3.
Sure.
So that's, I guess, what we're asking for you.
Then this is taking 2 or 3 steps ahead, but the bond we'd expect to be a 10-year fixed, 20-year fixed.
20 years is what they offer.
And if you're in the 4s, there's not going to be a cheaper way to finance that.
They'll sometimes do longer than that, but you wouldn't do it on a project this size, I wouldn't think.
They'll offer, SRF will offer now, that was rural developments. They'll offer 40 years payback. SRF typically will be 20, and this one will be 20 because of the equipment type stuff. If you're putting in concrete tanks or something that are expected, they now put some of that out to 35 years. But I think in this case, because the efficiency.
So to say, which makes sense, because it's usually a 20, 25-year life expectancy.
And IT is big on that too now. They're coming back, but they don't want to be paying a 40-year loan for a 20-year piece of equipment and stuff, so.
And I'm not sure you know something about this, John, right? I mean, for a project this size, I don't know that you want to push it out for such a long amortized term anyway. So that's always a hard decision. If it's about driving rates down just as low as you can drive them, I think Brooklyn on this mess it's in, we may have some of it out to 40, I don't know, 35 certainly, but my gosh, I mean, that's, you never get to the end of it. You never do.
Other questions? I think Lee kind of said it. It's not like we have an option in doing the project or not. I know there's been a lot of work going into this already as far as this report and what Matt's done. So we just need to determine if we're gonna move forward with this 155,000.
Seems like we need to. I'll make the motion that we
Okay,
approve it.
enter into the agreement.
I'll
Okay,
second.
good. Second by Chad. Other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 affirmative. Did you get all that?
Can I clarify, so what we just motioned and approved is for that initial 155, which is for GRW to do the design, that's what we're approving tonight?
Task 1, 2, and then the geotechnical service, additional services,
Which is actually 154,000.
Oh, is it?
No, it's 155. Sorry, I was mathing donuts up there.
Yeah.
Because the geotechnical is 6,000.
Yeah.
And then geotech. And then just for the design, it's not project.
So there's some other tasks. So if this all go right, if we get there At some point, we would come back and the funding, you'd have your funding, and we'd say, okay, we need you to authorize us to bid, there's some money in there for bidding. And then after that, there'd be construction administration, some construction observation, there's other monies in there for that. And again, all those are in this rate, they're not new numbers, they're already calculated in there and the total project cost.
Okay. You good, Angela?
Yes.
Okay.
And Matt and I talked about that, so
Okay.
that way it gives you some control, and we would never do that without your authorization anyways, but that way you guys can sign off on it as we go through the process.
And do you have that?
I got something to report you, sign before,
Okay.
on that, and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, so with that, I'll be done, and
Okay.
if he sends that to me, and that'll be our notice to proceed, and we'll get the meeting set up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Angela, any other old business?
No.
Lee?
Yeah, so I learned more about the wheel tax, House Bill 1461, right, the final version. And what we talked about last time, it turns out to be true. It would be a double tax. It is not required that you adopt a wheel tax to be eligible for community crossing grant money. There is a requirement that you adopt it to be on the back end of whatever funding there may be left, distributed out to, if there is any, to agencies based on a calculation of total road mileage. But I'm assuming you're going to repeal the ordinance that enacted that because of the double taxation, and because it's not a requirement, and you will still get your share of the county wheel tax as it collects it and pays it back to New Whiteland for the cars registered in New Whiteland, like it's always happened in the past. I don't have the ordinance tonight. I just wanted to report to you on that. Adam Stone's coming on the 16th, right, for the presentation he's going to make on the tax levy, on the annexation levy, and he's going to help us understand a bit better the effects of Senate Bill 1. And Adam knows his way around the wheel tax legislation as well. So I thought, let's get on the other side of that. If you want to have a discussion about it in any greater depth, then we'll have him present, and you can pose questions to him if you want. Although I think, I've talked with him about it too. I said, hey, I'm going to run past you what my understanding is, and you tell me if you agree, and he did. And I think we've got time. It doesn't have to be done tonight. We can repeal this thing before it takes effect anyway. But that's the update. And if that's all right, he'll be here if you want to talk with him about it too, and then we'll set up for August. Well, do you want me to draft an ordinance to bring to you to repeal?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the consensus when we did it.
Yeah, me too.
But I know you were very adamant that if it's going to be a double, we're not doing it.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I think that's kind of the direction of the entire council is.
Well, and I said at the last meeting, I'd come back to you and report on it and try to verify that all that's true, and I think I have. But anyway, that's the update.
Yeah, if you can have that for
And even
August.
if you don't want to tell me tonight, I'll draft an ordinance to repeal it.
Okay.
And we'll have it in our pocket, and we'll do with it what we want. Okay? So there you have it.
Question for Lee, when did that SB 1 go into effect?
July 1st.
Then is that going to have any effect on the residents currently for that month time span?
For the what?
For this, so it went into effect July 1st, if we're not gonna actually rescind that ordinance until August, is it gonna have any effect on the residents?
For our wheel tax ordinance to take effect, it has to be delivered to the Bureau.
county, that's right.
And I haven't done it.
So, that was the only question that I had,
Yeah.
I just didn't want them to get hit
Right.
for tax for that month.
Yeah, so, no, it won't. Yeah, it's a good question, but I'm just not closing the loop in order for it to take effect, yeah.
Okay. Chad?
No,
John?
sir. No.
Nope. John? No. You guys? Joe? He left, didn't he?
As
Slacker?
soon as you said they could leave, he was not going in and get those donuts.
He's off to a
Yeah.
donut county.
New business, the 26 budget hearing dates.
Yes, I sent you guys an email, I think Monday, where I filed the pre-budget report, and in that, I'm supposed to let them know when our public meeting is gonna be and our adoption meeting, which, I put September 3rd for the public meeting and then the adoption October 1st. This is kind of in line with what we did last year. Then my only question for you guys is that if you wanna have that separate budget workshop meeting with the department heads, and if so, I don't know if you wanna go ahead and let me know when you wanna do that, if you wanna do it before the public hearing or between the public hearing and the adoption.
I think in the past, we've done it in between the two, have we not?
Right.
And I think that works well, because then we get to see it the first time. And then before we do the public hearing, if there's anything that needs to be taken out or adjusted, we have time in between. So if that works, then it's gonna be an extra meeting, but, it's not,
So that would be, the 10th, the 17th, or the 24th of September?
just personal. I think if we do the 17th, that gives us 2 weeks to review, and then 2 weeks in between then and the public hearing. But it kind of depends on everybody's schedules.
I'm looking now. I'm good on the 17th.
Okay. Everybody, so the 17th at 5, and then you want to schedule them like we have in the past, where you give each department 30 minutes and we can work through that.
Yep.
Okay, and then we just need to make sure we advertise that ahead of time, because that is a special meeting. Okay? Anything else?
That's all.
Okay. Health insurance renewal, Bob. Thank you for being here.
Yes, we're here tonight, Jamie and I are here tonight to address the council regarding the benefit programs that renewed for the town, August 1st. I believe Melissa provided you a copy of the document you reviewed with some recommendations in terms of decisions around the benefit plans. So the medical plan for the town employees is with Anthem. We did receive a slight increase, about a 4.5% increase, to be able to maintain the same plan design we have for the employees and the families. Based on the enrollment we had at the time, it looked like that 4.5% increase would come about over $9,000 a year to maintain the same plan before you decide how to share the premium increase between the town and the employees. On the dental plan, our dental plans with Delta Dental of Indiana, we were seeing about 11.5% increase there. We did get some alternative quotes. Anthem was the most competitive option, but our recommendation was really to remain with Delta Dental. The plan design that Anthem was quoting us, that was most competitive. We had some concerns about that in terms of network access and comparability to what the town employees and families have had over the years. So we were recommending remaining with Delta Dental. It was 11.5% increase. Again, based on the enrollment at the time, the annual increase is like $1,800 total. And again, the town shares the premiums between the town and the employees. And then our other lines of insurance in terms of vision insurance, our life insurance, and our disability plans, all were a rate hold. So really looking at the medical and the dental plan, is any type of rate change for the next 12 months.
Yeah, I know Dwayne and Matt sent out an email about the increases, and I know you had a recommendation.
Yeah, so the recommendation is going to stay with Anthem with the 4 point whatever increase, stay with Delta Dental, and just basically renew straight across the board. And per usual, just splitting the cost 50-50 like we had in the past. That's, I mean, it makes the most sense after, sitting down with Bob and Matt and Joe and going through that. It kind of makes sense. So.
Well, for clarity, it's not really a 50-50 split. It amounts to about 80-20, right? Which is the split we have now.
Yeah, so he's referring to the increase, taking a 4.5% increase, so the town's costs are going 4.5%, the employees' costs go up 4.5%.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about raw dollars.
He's talking about split that percentage increase, but you're right, the town does absorb more, like it's more like 80-20 of the total premiums.
Right.
And then the same really in the dental too, was to share the increase, that 11.5% equally. Again, dental premium costs are dramatically lower than healthcare. So the dollar impact is pretty small. You know, when you look at it, we did model out premium share scenarios when we met to review some of those different alternatives. But historically, that's what the town has done when we've had increases, sort of share and keep that same sort of split, that 80-20 split.
I think from what they explained, we could shop for something new, but
Yes.
because we're grandfathered into this,
Yes.
it would be dramatically higher to go outside of what this is.
Yes, so as a reminder, the town of Whiteland's what we call is a grandfather plan with Anthem. So when the Affordable Care Act was passed, one of the options was if you're a small group employer, which was you have less than 50 employees, you can stay in your grandfather status with your current plan and there, because everything went to what we refer to as community rating, which when you go to community rates, the rates are much higher, even if you stay with your current carrier. So, so yeah, we'd be maintaining our grandfathered status within this, honestly, this very large block of business that Anthem has, and that has performed actually really well, and we enjoy getting lower increases than what healthcare trends are in the marketplace. So it's actually worked out pretty beneficial for the town and other clients we work with. So it's actually works well to our advantage.
Just so you know, it does, so on the bottom of 519, the Anthem ACA rate, so like if we work in the grandfather, it would be a 71.63% increase. So
Dramatic, yeah, pretty dramatic increase. And when we do go to market with RFPs to get quote from other competitors, when we get a fully insured quote from other health plan vendors, they can't offer you to put you in their legacy grandfather block. They have to offer you ACA compliant plan. Now, there's other products in the market that you can look at to try to get around some of those rules and regulations. But the town's plan is very competitive. The premiums are very competitive. We have benchmark data we shared in there that showed, you know, in terms of plan design and cost, everything is very competitive, including what employees pay for their portion of the dollar amount premium is very competitive. So very compelling reason to maintain course as we are for the next 12 months, and we'll see. You know, we always revisit every year like we always do, and we always re-quote and get quotes just to make sure everything is aligning favorably.
One thing I'd like to ask, and since you kind of brought it up, you said that you checked Anthem Dental.
Yes.
And it was comparable, but you said with the track record with dental or with Delta, what have you guys seen? I mean, have the employees been pretty well satisfied with Delta?
I would put it this way, I haven't heard any complaints.
Okay.
and I think that was kind of the big thing of if we made the switch, you know, okay, well, does Anthem cover where most of the employees are?
Okay.
So.
Yeah, the concern was they about network disruption, because with the Anthem
That
plans
makes
that they were
sense.
quoting was if you went out of network, you know, an employee or spouse or child could face a pretty big balance bill if that dentist isn't on network. And unfortunately, you know, they don't give us reports and tell us where everybody's going to, what providers are seeing. So we talked about that, but Anthem did give us another quote that we were more comfortable with, but it was pretty much right on par.
Okay.
With those dentists, I was like, well, I go through a vendor change if you know, if you don't have to. And then on the vision side, we did look at vision as well, and our current plan and rates were better, you know, so if we were to move, we'd have higher rates. So it was like the combined package of keeping dental and vision with Delta made the most sense.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the renewal?
So moved.
Motion by John Schlotsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Chad. Questions, comments?
And is that on the 50-50 split?
John?
Yes,
Sharing
that's on the
benefits.
50-50. That's a good
Okay.
point. Good
Yep.
point.
So we're approving the renewal and splitting the increase 50-50 between the town and the employees. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 affirmative. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate your work. Angela, other new business? Lee?
No.
Chad? John? Nope. John? No.
Just something real quick. We had an employee resignation yesterday at 4 p.m. He is moving on to what he feels is a bigger and better, and a good opportunity for him. So with that, we are asking council's permission to look at hiring and filling his position.
Yeah, I mean, we're not adding anybody, you're just replacing, and it's not like you guys have extra people, so. Yeah, we okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Dave, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, that big thing in front of you, I didn't see you. Did you have any old business that we skipped over?
So, I did have one thing, so last month, right before our meeting, I gave you guys a fee schedule that Carrie had created for inspections. And I was hoping you had a chance to review that by now, kind of advise on next steps. Do we need to create an ordinance for that separately? Do we move forward with under existing ordinances, or what would be next steps for that?
Fees for
Violations for fire-related building inspections.
yeah, well, that will have to be the subject of an ordinance, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And a public hearing as well?
No,
Okay.
no. Did you send that to me?
I did.
I think
I
so.
believe I sent everybody up there.
Yeah, okay. Well, why don't I get it in the form of an ordinance and bring it back to you? Let's do it that way.
Yeah.
And then if you want to change the fees, we can discuss it as we present the ordinance, and we can adjust it then. There'll be an introduction and adoption. It will have to be published, but it won't be the subject of a public hearing.
Okay. And one thing I would suggest is as you guys go through and review that again, if you see something that you'd like to have maybe changed, let Lee know.
Yeah, you can just let me know.
And then that way we
there it is, Dave.
maybe head it off ahead of time.
I know you sent it, and I have read it. Can you send it again, just so it's in the top of the email box? That'll trigger me to read it again and look at it closely.
Yeah, I do that.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, do you have anything else? Did you have anything in old business, or was that,
No, I think.
since I just skipped right over you?
That's fine. No, I think we'll call up on it. That's okay.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, appreciate it. Dave, do you have anything? Okay. We have one thing left under legislative, ordinance 2025-01 on the non-emergency calls. We want to address that.
Yeah,
one
well,
tonight as
that's up to you, I guess. I think where we left off on that was coming up with numbers. And I know it's now been several months, and we look to you guys to tell us whether the problem that was the impetus for all of this still exists and is as bad. How is it relative to how it was, and is it still enough of a problem that you remain interested in even having this in effect? And so I don't know.
Well, here's my question, because I still see a lot of runs over there, okay? And a lot of runs all over the place. But would you classify them as non-emergency, or just a matter of this is how we have to do business now? So I think that'll dictate what.
Well, I'd say recently, most of these have been legitimate emergency needs. There's been a couple of cases that I've been on personally where I don't think that was the case. I think it was the staff just not wanting to do their part. That's my opinion. But I would like to go ahead and move forward with the ordinance regardless, even though it's not the same as it was when we started this process, because there is turnover in that world over there, and we don't know what the next person in charge is going to do. So I'd rather have the ordinance in place now, so it's there for you.
What do you think the fee ought to be?
Hey, what did I send you before?
Well, I was thinking
We calculated something based on
it was
surrounding.
quite a bit higher than what we discussed. I know. I was thinking, did you say 250?
Well, I think I had originally put in 500.
I did, yeah.
You guys had asked if we wanted to do like 250 for first time and that kind of thing. I would rather have one fee to reduce the administrative part of us trying to track how many times
Agreed.
it's been, all that kind of thing. So I would just like to have one fee set.
For the 500 per call, and add verbiage that it may be charged at the discretion of fire chief or designee. So yeah, that's what you had suggested back at the end of March.
Is that roughly an estimation of what it costs to run out there and do what you need to do and come back? All right, just curious to know how you came up with the number. I'm not surprised by it.
That's based on surrounding departments.
Oh, I got you. Okay. I'm not surprised by it.
It's hard to determine. I mean, it's more than what we're spending for, we're paying somebody if they're all shift, that kind of thing. But it tends to be a deterrent.
Right,
So
exactly.
if they're only charging them $25, $30.
Who cares?
Yeah, they're not. It's not going to be a deterrent.
Yeah.
Cheaper than them paying somebody to pick up a person.
Exactly.
One thing I'm a little concerned is it's putting the onus on you to determine what is non-emergency and emergency.
Yes.
When we're talking about personnel changes, what if we were to have personnel changes? You know, maybe you decide you need to spend more time with your real job and not the one you do for free. What's your comfort level with being the guy that says, okay, yes, this is emergency, this is not emergency?
Well, it's my way of operating those. I don't keep all that information just to myself.
Okay.
So once we have a decision, I'll be sitting down with all the officers explaining, this is what we're doing, this is what we're looking for, this is the criteria.
Okay.
And the suggestion was Dave or his designee. You know, I think that it has to be Dave or someone under Dave's command, because it's got to be someone out in the field assessing the facts on a case-by-case basis. And so I get it. I understand your point. I share it, but I don't know how else to get at it.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose if you assess a fee and they want to argue about it, they can come here and argue about it. I mean, assuming they argue.
Probably not successfully, but yes, they
assuming
can.
they argue with you first, I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and I'm completely fine. I trust your opinion more than ours because you're there. But when we started talking about code enforcement, we talked about that would putting the burden on the town council instead of the individual police officers to waive or whatever until we found out we actually don't have that authority. So would it be better for you if we were the bad parent, or are you completely comfortable with them saying this is unfair and arguing with you?
Well,
I don't think it's going to work like that. I mean, I think that if it's an ordinance and they're deemed to have violated it, they either pay or it gets referred to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we have the authority.
I have some discretion at that point to negotiate with them, but they really aren't. Unless we wire into this ordinance an appeal process, we could. We would have to tailor it so that they can come to you and appeal the sort of operation of the ordinance. But I really caution you taking that on. I mean, I think that if we have an ordinance, we believe in the ordinance and you enact it because you think that's the right thing to do. That is the local rule. If they violate it, they're subject to the fine. And if they don't pay it, it ends up being collected like a parking ticket does or anything else. So I guess I hope we don't treat this like any other ordinance violation. You know, if someone's got a nuisance condition or whatever, they hadn't cut the grass, but you know, whatever it might be, they broke the rule, and here's how that plays out. I think I guess I think the purpose of the ordinance is a deterrent, not to collect money. I'm not convinced that it needs to be $500 to act as a deterrent. I think that if this business over here is getting hit with several $100, $250, $300, something like that, what's most important is that they learn that there is an ordinance, and they learn that it's going to be enforced, and that every time they decide to call our resources over there instead of hire somebody to do what they should have hired someone to do, it's going to cost them a lot more than what it would cost to have that person on their payroll. We need to hit that number, whatever that is. 500 will do it, I think. I really do. But I think a lesser amount might. And a lesser amount might result in less complaints and appeals. And if they want to complain, they can come to you and complain about your ordinance shouldn't say what it says. But I don't think we want to let them come in and complain about, don't make me pay this. So if we're going to do it, let's get the ordinance in place. Let's put a number in there that everybody feels like will serve as a deterrent, but not more than that. And then if you violate it, you violate it, and you pay the ordinance, or you go down and see the magistrate, and you can argue with him about it, that it's not an ordinance that can be enforced, and that's not going to turn out to be true. But the other possibility too, no, we probably can't list this as an ordinance violation for your ordinance, so never mind.
Right. Two things I want to say. I think the 500 is excessive. I would settle on a number like 300. And I think we need to have the same faith in our fire department that we have in our police officers, that when they go out and they write an ordinance violation ticket, they don't come to us. I mean, we found out that they're not allowed to anyway.
I completely trust them to do that. I just don't want them to feel any extra burden on it.
I think if anybody wanted to come to the councils, like Lee just said, they can come and dispute the ordinance itself.
Yep.
And the validity of the ordinance itself, but not the fact that they got a ticket.
Yep.
To me, that's no different than a parking ticket, a speeding ticket. You did it.
Yep.
Pay the ticket or go to court.
Yep.
So
I think too, if you set it at something less than 500, and you guys getting called out there all the time, and we're writing work, and they're just paying them, you're going to tell the council, and the council's then going to say, all right, well, that needs to be 750. You know, I think that it's going to be a bit of a trial for a little bit to see whether you kind of hit the sweet spot on that number or not. But you will have within your power and discretion all the time the ability to raise or lower that number if you think the circumstances call for it. Starting out, I think you want to hit a number that sends a clear message that's enough to get their attention and act as a deterrent. And I don't, you know, I'm awakening in the world every day, shocked by what things are costing and lagging behind, and maybe not 500 is the right number, and less than that's lagging behind. I don't know, but boy, I'd love to find out that it doesn't need to be that much.
well, I know everybody's had a chance to review this, and the only thing that we have been lacking is the amount. So if somebody wants to make a motion with an amount in there that we pass this ordinance, then let's give them some teeth and let them deal with this.
Well, I will make a motion, and with a little bit of explanation, I think we start at 300. We find out what the impact is, and if we do need to increase it, then we increase it, decrease it, whatever we need to do to make it work. So I will make a motion for this ordinance with a fee of $300 per trip.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second, John Purdy. Other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 affirmative.
I'll get it done and down for signature.
Thank you. Okay, that is everything on this evening's agenda. So at this time, the meeting is open to the public. You guys have sat through this. If you have a question or comment, we ask for your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Doug Albee. My wife and I live at 65 Pine Court over in Tracy Ridge. We've owned the house since '95, And there's an easement behind our property there. And for, past several years, I'd go around the block and come back up through that easement to mow. And we've never really known exactly where our property line ends. We're pretty sure it extends beyond the fence from what I can see on the beacon map. But in the last several years, the folks behind us, they've kind of let the weeds and everything kind of take over back there. So I go back there several times a year. I drive around the block, take my riding mower, and then I spray pretty heavy duty weed killer back there. These weeds, I don't know if they're like cocklebur or exactly what they are, but if you let them grow within about a week, they're like this tall, and these burrs, fall off them. So it's been kind of creeping over into our yard really bad in the last couple of years. And so, once again, it gets on the dogs, the kids get out there and get these things on. So, I don't know, what's it been, about 3 weeks? Yeah. 3 weeks. I sprayed back there, and I noticed that I don't really know who did it, but somebody installed a chain link fence across the easement, and to where I couldn't get back there now. And so the weeds are taking over. So I really just kind of wanted to get some help with determining, where we are responsible for in that easement, if we could. And I've been taking care of it forever. At this point, I'm glad to keep doing it, but with that fence being put up there, I just want to make sure what I'm doing is legal and what I'm responsible for.
So I'm going to add to this. So Doug reached out to me, and really in my mind it turns into a kind of a code violation. According to Beacon Schneider, the property's a bud. There happens to be a utility easement through there. What appears to me to be the issue is that it's just like with a lot of things. When somebody sells a house, somebody moves in, they assume that the fence is the property line. Well, that's not the case. In this case, these people behind him, their property abuts right to his, so they're not taking care of the easement. Now, what that fence is, I don't know. I don't know whose that is. But I directed him to reach out to Joe. I think there was some conversation that took place there, but I just wanted to touch on really what truly the issue is, because people think it's the fence is their property line, they're not taking care of the easement, and it is the responsibility of the homeowner to maintain their easement, whether their fence is there or not.
Yeah, I did call Joe, and he said, this is kind of new for them to be handling code enforcement, so he just suggested that I come to the meeting. I actually brought some pictures.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Yeah, don't mind.
There's a printed from Beacon there, and then there's a second photo where you can kind of see my fence there, and then that appears to be the property line. This is from a few weeks ago when I had mowed and sprayed. That's kind of a close-up picture of one of the weeds that has just come back into my fence. And then this is what it looks like after just spraying about 3 weeks ago, I guess it was.
So does one of these have the new fence that's been put
Yeah,
up?
that's the fence.
This right here?
Yeah,
When did that fence appear?
I think, was it
2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably used. And so basically what he did, he just kind of cut a trench there and set it into the trench. Didn't, attach it to my fence, but it was right up against it. But, and so you can kind of see in this picture where all these weeds are kind of coming from his yard. So I probably spend $200 or $300 a year maintaining it, and that's fine. But I just don't want to be encroaching on his property or doing something I'm not supposed to be doing.
Why isn't there more low growth?
I actually took my mower back there because it was just total weeds.
But it's down to dirt.
Yeah, that's what I had to do because really there was no
Because you
grass.
sprayed it with Roundup some so heavily that you killed off everything?
Yeah, and
Okay.
and this after 3 weeks it comes right back. So, you know, at first I tried to like just do it about 2 or 3 feet from the fence, but it wasn't effective. It just kept creeping. So,
what can we do?
Well, I think that if the weeds are growing, it's a violation of our, what we call a weed and rank vegetation ordinance. We have an ordinance that requires that weeds be controlled. I think what's tricky right now is you have solved the weed problem for the moment. What you're trying to do is get in front of it so it doesn't come back. I think that as soon as that condition on the property violates the weed ordinance, our police officers need to cite them for a violation of our weed ordinance. I would like to think there's some way to have some kind of conversation with these folks to say, look, here's what's coming. And if you want to get some grass established there and get in front of this, we hope that that's what you will do.
But we don't have access to it now.
No, I'm saying that whoever the neighbor is that does have access to it, and if that fence is not dividing the property on the property line, I don't. What's our deal, guys, on fences? We don't require a permit, right?
Right now, we don't require
We
a
don't.
permit. That is something we would definitely like to change
Yeah.
because, I mean, this is a prime example of it, you know, even though it doesn't appear that there's a drainage swale in the ground, there is a large drainage pipe that runs down through there. You know, and whoever put that fence up also needs to understand that it's an easement. We can go through there and at any time for a project and take it down at their cost.
Well, I'm not sure it can be in an easement in the first place, right?
Yeah, I think we've got stuff in the ordinance that they can't block the easement. Right. So, I would assume we have to take that fence down.
Is it all right for me to offer that you two, the police department, and I will talk about this a bit to see if we can't come up with a way to get at it? Is that all right to commit us all to do that? All right.
great. Appreciate your help.
Thanks, Doug. Anyone else? Yes.
I have a list. The Appleton 103 Sawmill. What are you guys gonna do? You just mentioned it was really good that you guys brought up about this weed control and so forth, and we have an ordinance. What are you guys gonna do about the property across the street on Sawmill? Drive down that road. These guys already know, we had a little bit of a discussion. If my yard, as a property owner, and I'm not sure if it's a developer or who owns all that property now, they are a property owner, would that be correct to say they own that now?
Mm-hmm. We're talking about grass?
Yes.
Okay.
If my yard looked like that, I would be getting a letter, I'd be getting a fine. Today I went out and I cut back. Right at the end of our drive, there's a tree that goes like this and then like this, because the tree died or whatever happened. There's a whole bunch of weeds, they're going out into the road. When we back out of our drive, depending on what direction we're gonna go, we back into that. Well, we don't, because the truck stops us all of a sudden and says you can't go any further. So I went out and I cut that. Because if you watch that road, people are going, if they're going south, they are coming over into the east side to get around to keep from hitting those weeds. You have about halfway down, I think it's just before the church, you have a couple of neighbors that is actually mowing what these guys used to do out of as a courtesy for the farm owner. But now the weeds literally are up to my neck. What are you guys gonna do about that? Because I'd be fine.
Yeah, that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
It does.
I mean, someone needs to take, I'm beginning to wonder, sometimes, and maybe you guys do, but someone needs, you know, I shouldn't have to come tell you that. You guys that we vote you in should be getting in your cars occasionally, and I'm sure you do, and going around and looking and say, hey, well, we got a problem here. You know, it shouldn't have got to where it's at right now, because had that been done, those weeds wouldn't be up to here. That whole field is that way, that whole field. With that being said, these guys did a great job of, whether it's the developer, whoever, you allowed them to do as a training you know, to learn that hopefully they don't have to use those skills in the event of our house is being burnt down and so forth. But at the same time, there's no trespassing sign over there. You have a big empty whole basement. We sit out on the front porch on any given day, school's out, kids will be kids, and I'm sure, I know I did, I explored as a kid, and I'm sure you guys all did. Someone's gonna get hurt. Someone's gonna get hit. Before the house was torn down, we were able, or I was able to deter some kids because there was cameras on the garage, back by the back patio door and on the front. They didn't work, they were hooked up. Kids were going over there as they were boarding up and various things and exploring. Kids are gonna be kids. So I said, hey guys, you might wanna be careful. You know, at that point, I think some of the roofing had been off, and so there's probably roofing nails and, you know, different things. But you guys might wanna be careful, there's cameras up there. I don't want you guys to see you get hurt or get in trouble. Their eyes got about this big, and boy, they took off pretty fast. The house is torn, you know, burnt down, torn down. Kids are going over there and they're exploring. Something there again needs to be done, because someone's gonna get hurt. I mean, go take a look. It's, you can drive by and see, but I mean, you know, where the basement was, it's a big hole. That whole property is a, honestly, lawsuit waiting to happen. I know it won't necessarily fall on the town because you don't own the property, but we as a town should take pride in all of our properties around us. And I live across the street from that. And it's sad, you know, as far as, you know, what I'm having to look at. What is, and I know this was discussed last year at one of the meetings, where over the years, Sawmill has been resurfaced, and so, you know, whatever you want to call it, to where our property now is from the road to our meter, we're about 12 inches below the road. So when we have all those spring rains, I have ducks in my yard. I could go put a pontoon probably out in my yard because we have that much water standing in our yard because we're so low from the road. I would suspect, and I talked to one of the guys, probably at one point there was a drainage tile that went through there, that after years, it's probably broken, or collapsed, or whatever you want to call it, or full, or whatever they do. So right now, for me to put a French drain in, it's going to cost me $2,000. I shouldn't have to absorb all that because of that road. If you look, you go on down, the road's not nearly as high as it is up at our end. And it's my yard and the yard north of me, they're the ones that flood. Right now, they're really, I mean, I couldn't even mow part of my yard because I got so much water standing. So what's our answer on that? I know at one point, when all this development stuff was going on, there was discussion of somehow the redeveloping of the road or doing some stuff to the road and the roundabout and all that, that might be able to get worked in. Well, if I understood correctly from something I read in the paper, that's not gonna be for another 2 years, give or take. Now, I may be wrong in understanding that. But, you know, I'd like to be able to have a nice yard again, but I can't.
Well,
so what do we try to, what do we do?
well, with them putting the roundabout that's gonna go in there, relatively close to you, and with that new housing addition, that's probably gonna take care of a lot of that, because I know that a lot of that's gonna get redone. Just to be honest with you, it would make absolutely no sense whatsoever. You said 2 years, which it very well may be 2 years. Just my opinion, it would be an absolute waste of money to say, okay, let's go in and fix this now for somebody else to come back in and tear it up and do it again.
Right.
I mean, that would be redundancy.
No, I understand.
But I know at least down at your end where you are, that is part of the upcoming project with the housing addition and the roundabout. Correct me if I'm wrong. At least to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent. It's nothing substantial. What they've agreed to is mill that portion off 1.5 inches and overlay 1.5 inches. But I think and I could be wrong in this, and I'm gonna throw it on Matt here a little bit. But I think the developer was looking into possibly connecting. I'll let you touch on that, because where I was going with was touching some drainage problems.
So, kind of just go back a little bit. So as far as, and tell me if I'm wrong here, on Sawmill Road, I wouldn't assume that it's been overlaid and overlaid and overlaid, and that's why the depth, the height there. I would say that, maybe maybe 4 inches at the most, probably worth of overlays, and that's if they didn't mill off. What I would say when that was originally developed is that those yards were gonna be lower than the road, but there was a swale of some sort in the front of those yards with pipes under the driveway that carried it south. There's a inlet at the corner of Whiteland Road and Sawmill. Over time, and I'm thinking this is probably where we were talking about drain tile. It's not so much of a drain tile, it's a swale has just over time filled in with just debris and things like that, and just grown up with grass in it, and people's redone driveways, and those pipes have either collapsed or they got taken out, things like that, so it doesn't allow the water to convey to the south there. That's what I think probably the biggest issue is there. Now, to go back to what Dwayne was saying, the developer wasn't so much going to fix the issue on that side. They were going to give us the capacity and the easements to get water over to we'll call their ponds and things like that. That's what the developer was going to do.
Since you've said that the overlays have just kept going and going, you talked about milling off an inch or inch and a half. Is it even doable, or would it make sense the next time we're going to do that road to mill off more than that and do an overlay just to kind of, instead of here, we're going to be down to here? Would that make sense, or is it even doable?
I don't know. I mean, like Matt just said, the first thing we'd have to do would be core and see how thick it is.
I really don't know that's even doing that's going to fix. I mean, the water's, if that road's higher than that,
just nowhere for it to go.
It's always going to go to the yard, which that's why I say I think it was originally designed that way. It's just there should, a swale that wasn't maintained over time, just doesn't allow that water to convey south there.
Okay.
So that's kind of, I guess, my thought process. I still know the way, y'all want me to go, or how, to move forward with that.
Well, if they're going to grant us the easement to move some of that water, I mean, I'm not going to say, next week this problem is going to be alleviated, but at least if you know that they're giving us the access, there may be something in the future to alleviate, because it is a pain in the butt when you can't even go mow your grass. I get it.
I can't.
So.
There's if I sections of it, if I go ahead and mow, literally, I have to go put my mud boots on because I'll sink down in the yard.
I get it.
And it's on my north side, and then I guess what you guys would call a swallow, or where there might have been a ditch, like where the mailbox is.
Yeah, that's what it would
if somebody wants to come in and put a drainage through there, and it's all gravel or whatever, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I just want something. Because if I end up putting in, we say, okay, this is 2 years, it's taken too long, and I go ahead and I try to attempt to eliminate my water, and then somebody comes in behind me, I'm not going to be very happy.
I definitely understand that.
But I'm very patient, because this has been over a year that I keep coming and discussing this, and waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. I'm an old lady, I'm German, I'm blonde, and my patience are gone, guys. they are gone. And then my other, so back to where we stand with that. I mean, what do we think? I know things can't be done overnight. I got that.
Yeah.
So we don't even have approved construction plans yet for the development. Obviously, we know kind of what the layout's going to look like. I could try to come up with, the possibility of a better plan once I know, their construction plans.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I know we submitted comments, or getting ready to submit comments back to them if we already haven't. So I'd assume that we'll have construction plans here.
Yeah.
Or approved construction plans here in the not so distant future.
Well, and just so you're aware, things are kind of at a standstill with this whole development. So, I mean, with the whole development, so to commit to you this, we don't know what the plan is right now because of some changes they've wanted to make. So yeah, we're, hate to say it, we're kind of in the same boat you are. And I use the term boat. Just because until they come with something that here's a definitive plan. Now, I will commit this to you. Your first two issues, that is an issue. And I don't know why, but I didn't realize until Saturday when I drove by there and I looked over there and it's like, there's a basement there. I honestly didn't even realize it was there until I went by the other day and it's like, that is dangerous. So those two items, those are no-brainers.
Yeah.
Because you're right, if we're gonna ask you to keep your yard, okay, I don't care how big their yard is.
Exactly.
You know, they didn't have any problem coming over and cutting all the trees down. They can come over and send somebody with a tractor and cut the grass.
Right.
And do something with that basement. We have no responsibilities there other than the fact that they let you use that house for training, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So that, anything that's done beyond there is on them?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. But yes, we will, on those two things for sure, we will reach out and get those rectified.
I mean, these guys, when it was the farm, these guys did a great job out there.
Yeah.
Trying to keep it, you know, mowed down and clean. You know, I keep my property as nice as I can, and I don't like looking at
Yep.
all this weeds, because as we all know, all that's going to also attract all kinds of critters. I'm not wanting to have that.
Well, and honestly, that's one of the points because Officer Brooks back there will tell you that one of the reasons that we have them doing the ordinance violations is not to be bad, you know, people. It's the rodents and the you know, everything else that goes with it. And if I'm not going to allow you to do it, then we shouldn't allow them to do it either. So,
Yeah, thank you.
got your point.
And then two other things. One, what is our ordinance for noise violation and what is noise violation? My point being on that is Belvedere, is that what's north of me? Is that the
Bel Air.
Okay, whatever that road is, you go there, turn right on that and go one block. The house there on the corner, they have a Doberman who all day, all night, well, until about 11 o'clock at night, barks continuously. We've called, an officer did go and talk. I could call every day. We have, and Angela knows this, she's been at the house, we live in my backyard. We have a sanctuary in our backyard. It's very peaceful, very calm. People love coming to our house. And when I can't enjoy my backyard because I'm constantly hearing yap, 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 this dog barking continually, that's affecting my time now. So what is the ordinance on that, and where is it finally, you know, I'm not gonna keep calling and these guys have to go out, it's a non-emergency, you know, it's not, they got more things to do, even though we've got to fight a town, they got better things to do than go knock on somebody's door and shut your dog up. Where does it?
Well, that is the only thing you can do. I mean, if you want to complain about a neighbor.
Every night?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're here asking for the town's assistance.
Right.
And the way you get the assistance is you alert the town to something that you think is a violation of our ordinance.
And see, I don't
And when
know
you say on the one hand, you know, what is the ordinance? The ordinance is they can't make excessive noise, and the way we enforce that is by having our code enforcement officers write violations. I realize it's a terrible burden for you to carry, but that is your remedy. That is the process.
What is the time that, you know, it barks, it barks, it barks, it barks, it barks. But I mean, is there a time at night that apparently is supposed to be kind of all quiet? You know what I'm saying? Is there a time frame?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't think so. I don't know that I may have to spend, I don't know that I know the answer offhand. I'm looking for it, but no, I don't think there is.
Well, I apologize, I'm gonna keep calling you.
And I realize that it's a lot to ask of them too, but the hope would ultimately be if enough pressure is brought to bear on the owner of the dog that they'll try to bring the dog under control. But that's a problem every place.
Right.
Maybe we've all suffered it at one time or another, and it's really hard to solve.
Yeah. And my final thing is, what is the expected time frame for a board member to get back to a person in the town that pays their taxes and either votes or not votes you guys in? What's the time frame of getting back?
My understanding is that council member sent you either an email or text message and never got a response.
Okay, can you show me that? Because I have nothing in my junk mail and I have no phone calls.
There is no set time period. There is no rule of the town or the state or any other regulatory authority requiring that an elected official respond by any set period of time.
Okay.
So that's up to that person to respond based on however they choose to. But if you're looking for, like the nuisance ordinance of the dog, a rule or something, no such rule exists.
Okay. So Chad, did you send me an email or did you contact me?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Can you tell me when and what number?
It was that night, later that night when I got home and read your email.
Did you do it by email? You responded by email?
No, you said text.
Okay, so can you show me the text because I don't have anything?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd appreciate that, and if that's the case, then I apologize to you.
No, you.
Because I did not, which we all know cell phones can be cell phones, you know, you can't call me, hopefully you don't want to,
But, and to be honest with you, this is the place if you need to speak to somebody. Okay, because, and I mean no offense by this,
No, I don't take offense.
but we have lives as well.
Right.
And Angela was very diligent in sending the message out, and it got to Chad. I know John Shalosky responded that if Chad was unavailable, he'd reach out to you. Chad said he would take care of it right away. So whether, you know, you're absolutely right. Things get miscommunicated, things get lost in the shuffle. These two mentioned us all the time. I sent this out, why did nobody respond? I get it, okay? But this would be the place if you have an issue. Honestly, that's why we have the open to the public time. Because it's not always, we can't always just drop everything.
And I understand that.
Okay, so, but yes, he did respond back,
Then with
that he
Chad, I
attempted,
apologize for
so.
being kind of upset, so I apologize to you, Chad, for that, because I didn't. So from my side, it appeared,
No.
nothing.
There were, when Angela sent it out, there were 3 other responses from people saying, if I need to make a phone call, I will. So please don't think that you were ignored, nobody cared. It's probably there's something that.
Jobs during the day or
Yeah,
whatever.
it got sent and it's out there somewhere.
And I understand that, and that's, you know, why I was kind of wanting to understand.
Yeah.
So, but again, you know, I apologize for my frustration, because, you know, from this side, it appeared one thing.
Sure, I get it.
I appreciate it, and I
I
appreciate
get
you
it.
addressing the other issues.
Okay. Anyone else? You guys sit through all this. Wow. Being no other business, we are adjourned.
So the weeds, the open basement, are you gonna have police department?
I don't know. We do. No, you're fine. Well, I don't know if it stops it when we know. I just want to know who we're gonna have get a hold of Radisson and tell them to fix that mess.